Okay, let's talk a little parsha. This week's parsha, Parshat Naso, has it's I think the longest single parsha of the year, and it is in the parsha. There is some major events. There is the law of the sota, the law of the nazir. There is all the gifts that the Nesiim brought. And in that section, there is also the Birchas Kohanim, the blessing of the priests, the blessing of the Kohanim that they give to the people. And that we understand that it's not the Kohanim that are giving the bracha, it's the Kohanim that are priming the bracha, that ultimately the bracha comes ultimately from Hashem. So the first question that I want to deal with is the way that we say Birchas Kohanim, the way that we say the blessing of the Kohanim. Here in Eretz Yisrael, we say the bracha every single day. But in Chutz La'aretz, we say it on Yontif. And on Yontif, it was a big deal, right? Saying the Birchas Kohanim and, the fathers with their children under the talus, the tunes, the aura of the Birchas Kohanim was something that was incredible. And we have to wonder that why don't we do it every day in Chutz La'aretz? If it was sort of good enough for Eretz Yisrael, why wouldn't we say it in Eretz Yisrael? Because it's based on a Ramah. Ramah, as one of Rav Moshe Isserles, was the Ashkenazic component to the Shulchan Aruch, to the Code of Jewish Law. Code of Jewish Law, Rabbi Yosef Karo, around the 1500s. He was a Sephardic, and then the Ramah, about 100 years later, went through the Shulchan Aruch and added things or argued with things that the Ashkenazi poskim had gone a different direction on. The Ramah writes that Nagu b'chol medinos elu, says in Europe, the minhag was that shein nosin kapeim elo b'yom tov, that we only do nesias kapayim, we only do the duchening, the blessing of the priests, we only do that on Yontif. And he explains, says mishum sha'oz shruyim b'simchas Yontif, because then we are engaged in the simcha, in the joy of Yontif. V'tov leiv hu yivarich, and a person who's of a good heart, he can give a bracha. Notice when the Kohanim are satiated, are happy, they're filled with a sense of simcha because of the Yom Tov, because of the Chag. So they then have the ability to be able to confer a bracha on others. And he continues and he says, Masha'en kem b'shayim esashon, on other days of the year, even on Shabbos, says they're turudim b'hirhurim al michyosam. They're worried about their lives. They're worried about parnasa. They're worried about things that are going on. They're worried about missiles falling. They're worried about all the anti-Semitism that's cropping up in the world. They're worried about things, and because they're worried about things, so then they don't have the ability to be able to focus their joy. And if they don't have the ability to be able to focus their joy, then they can't confer a heartfelt blessing on another. And even on Yontif, we contain that bracha just at Tfilas Musaf. We don't do it during Shachris like we do in Eretz Yisrael, but we do it only during Musaf, because there at Musaf, there we're about to leave shul. We're about to engage in the simcha of Yontif. Our hearts are filled with an incredible amount of joy, and that's when a bracha could happen. This is, in fact, the minhag of the Ashkenazim in America. There are some in America, some Sfardim that do, in fact, say Birchas Kohanim every single day. They say the priestly blessing every single day in the Amidah. But the Ashkenazim say it only on Yontif. But the reason is a fascinating reason. The reason is because we're not holding in that place. We're not holding in a place to confer blessing and really to receive blessing. We're missing something during the year, and missing something even on Shabbos. It's fascinating. There's a sefer called Aliyas Eliyahu, which is the stories of the Vilna Gaon. So the Aliyas Eliyahu brings down that the Vilna Gaon actually wanted to change the custom, and the Vilna Gaon in late 1700s, mid to late 1700s, the Vilna Gaon wanted that even in Chutz La'aretz, we should not follow the Ramah, which was that would be like a major change, but not follow the Ramah, and that we should in fact begin to do Birchas Kohanim every single day like they do in Eretz Yisrael. The very day that he was going to institute this and that he was going to start doing Birchas Kohanim in his shul, somebody told on him to the government, and the Gura was arrested. They made up some kind of charge against him, whatever, and the Vilna Gaon was arrested. And the Vilna Gaon said, that was it. Don't tamper with the Ramah. He attributed it, the tsaras that he was having, he attributed it to the fact that he was going to make this change from the Ramah's opinion, and he realized you can't tamper with the Ramah. The Aruch HaShulchan, another famous rabbi, famous teacher, said that it was like a basko, like a heavenly voice came out from heaven and said, in Chutz La'aretz, don't do it. So what it tells us also another beautiful thing, that in Eretz Yisrael, why don't they feel the same way in Eretz Yisrael? Because the kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, the kedusha of the land of Israel, is such that it fills us with a sense of simcha, even when we're in trouble, even when we're in difficult times. But we're in Artzeinu HaKedosha, we're in our holy land, and that extra level of kedusha makes it that we are able to confer a bracha and that we're able to receive a bracha. But the $1 million question that has to be asked is, what are we pining away for? What is this bracha of Birchas Kohanim? Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha. We all know the bracha, right? Yivarechecha Hashem, may God bless you and guard you. Yoyer Hashem panav elecha, may God shine His countenance upon you, and vichuneka, and show you grace. Yisa Hashem panav elecha, Hashem should lift His face to you, v'yasein lecha shalom, and give you peace. It's a beautiful bracha. But why is this the bracha that we pine away for? So I'll tell you a fascinating thing. First of all, if you look carefully at the bracha, you'll notice that it's not a bracha mishuleshes. It is not a threefold blessing. It's actually a sixfold blessing. Each bracha is doubled. Yivarechecha Hashem, may God bless you, v'yishmerecha, and may He guard you. Yoyer Hashem panav elecha, may Hashem shine His face on you, v'yichuneka, and be graceful to you. Yisa Hashem panav elecha, that God should lift His face to you, and then v'yasem lecha shalom, and show you peace. That's not 3 brachas. That's 6 brachas. So why do we call this the bracha meshuleshes? Why do we call this the threefold bracha? And now the $1 million question. What exactly are you being blessed with? What is Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha? God should bless you with what? A blessing on your head, MAZAL TOV, MAZAL TOV. It's got to be something. There's got to be something concrete to it. So what is the Yivarechecha bracha? What is the Yoyer bracha? What is the Yisa Hashem panav bracha? What is the Yishmerecha bracha? What is the V'yichunecha bracha? What is the Yosein Lecha Shalom bracha? What blessing are you receiving here? So Rashi tells us Yivarecha Hashem v'yishmerecha is that's a material blessing. That God should fill your life and increase it with bracha, with blessing. The word baruch means to bless, means to increase. And that your life should be increased. Your material life should be increased. You should have possessions. You should have a parnasa. You should have an easy lifestyle. Yoyer Hashem panav elecha is the light, is that you're being blessed with spirituality, being blessed with Torah. Yoyer Hashem panav elecha, that Hashem should show you His graciousness in spiritual existence. He should bolster your life. Your life should be lit up with the illumination of God and the illumination of Torah. Yisa Hashem panav elecha is that you should figure out how to integrate the two of them. The first bracha is a material bracha. The second bracha is a spiritual bracha. But we don't live in just the material world, and we don't live in just the spiritual world. So I appreciate the fact that you're giving me material bracha. I need a material bracha. I live in a physical world. It has to be bolstered and it has to be blessed. And I must be a spiritual person inside of that world. You must give me a spiritual bracha. But when you give me both of those brachas, you also have to give me the ability and the blessing that I should be able to integrate them and learn how to live in a physical world as a spiritual human being. To learn how to live in a world of Shabbos Kodesh, a world of the holiness of Shabbos and the world of chicken. That I can take that chicken that I'm eating, I can take that food that I'm eating, and I can turn that into a spiritual experience. That's nothing that I can do naturally. I have to learn how to do that. I have to be taught how to do that. I have to be given the strength to be able to do that. Those are the brachos. Those are the blessings that are being conferred on us. Material blessing, spiritual blessing, and the koach to be able to integrate the two brachos. I can give you a blessing. I can give you a lot of beautiful things. But if I don't bless you with the ability to be able to hold on to it, then I've ultimately given you nothing. I can give you $1 million, but if I don't show you how not to waste those $1 million, I've given you something that's going to strangle you. I've given you something that's going to hang around your neck. I can give you everything. But until you learn how to use it, until you learn how to guard it and protect it, then it's really ultimately valueless. There's a famous tshuva, a famous responsa on the question of somebody sold somebody a piece of lead. And then it turned out later that that lead was actually pure silver. It was covered over on the outside, and that was pure silver. And he bought the lead for pennies. And when the owner of the lead found out that it was really silver, and it was incredibly expensive silver, he took the buyer to court. And he wanted him to pay for the silver. Because after all, he had sold him silver and he only paid for lead. And at the end of the day, it was understood that because this guy had no idea that it was silver, no idea that he was selling, and no idea that the purchaser was purchasing anything more than just lead, the fact that it was silver, they were never Kona, they never acquired the silver. When the original owner bought that piece of lead and then sold it off to somebody else, he had no idea that he was selling silver, and therefore he never owned the silver. All he owned was the lead, because he didn't even know that it was inside that lead. And therefore he couldn't now turn to the person that he sold it to and say to him, now you have to pay me for the silver. Because if you have no idea what's inside of what you have no idea of the gift that you have no idea of the value of the things you have, you don't really own them. I can confer blessings on you all day long, but if you don't understand their value and you don't know how to protect them and to hold on to them, then it's ki'ilu, as if I've given you nothing. So that's why God gives us not only the bracha, but also the shmira. He gives us the blessing and the way to hold on to it. Yivarechecha Hashem, God should bless you with material blessing. V'yishmerecha, give you the strength and the knowledge and understanding how to protect your material blessings. And how do you protect your material blessings? You value them. And how do you value them? Because you know where they come from. You know that these are gifts from God. And therefore you look at all of those things as incredible gifts. And that causes you to protect and to take care of the things you own. Yor Hashem panav elecha. God should give you a spiritual blessing. Spiritual blessings are amazing. But spiritual blessings can strangle you. Because the level of responsibility that you have when you are blessed spiritually, when you are a representative of Torah, you're a representative of the Torah world. When you're a representative of living Torah, so then you're held to a certain standard. And therefore, God has to give you vichuneka, give you grace, give you the ability to be able to find chen in the eyes of other people. That your actions shouldn't be ugly and your actions shouldn't bring disdain on you and your community. Yoresh and Panav Elecha, God's going to give you bracha, but the part of the bracha is the shmira, the protection, the vichuneka. He should give you the ability to be able to find grace in people. Yisa Shem Panav Elecha, God should lift his face to you, give you both the material and the spiritual blessing, and give you the strength to be able to hold on to it. Because, to integrate the two into your life is not always a simple thing. It's not easy to know how much time you should spend on your spiritual existence and how much time you should spend on your material existence. How much focus and energy should you put into making a living? How much focus and energy should you put into your material side? And how much focus and energy should you put into your spiritual side? And very often there's an anxiety that goes on. There's a tension that goes on, a stress that goes on inside of a person. The person knows that they want to put hours and energy into their spiritual side, but then they feel guilty because they're not dealing with their material side. And then when they put time into their material side, they feel guilty that they're ignoring their spiritual side. And every time a person has a choice to do something, that they could do something spiritual or do something more material, or something that could be seen as being more material, so then they feel an anxiety. I'm giving up what I'm supposed to be doing. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai comes out of the cave and he sees a fellow who's working and he can't understand what he's doing. And he says to the fellow, you're leaving Chaye Olam and you're going to Chaye Shah. You're leaving everlasting life and you're focusing on just momentary life. You're focusing on this world existence. And you're not looking at yourself as a bigger creature in a bigger life, in a bigger existence, in an eternal existence. And it's an anxiety. And that's why we turn to him and say, V'yisem l'cha shalom. That God should give us shalom, he should give us peace. Because only with peace do we have an ability to be able to integrate the two and to entwine them together and to make them into one. And that's why we pine away for this bracha. And that's why this bracha not only has to be given with love, because when the Kohanim are giving the bracha, they say that the bracha that they make on the mitzvah of blessing the people is that they are doing the blessing of Aaron, be'ava, with love, because it has to be given over completely. I totally want this for you. I want you to be successful at this. But to receive it, we also have to be totally and completely opened. We have to be able to receive that bracha completely. And only when we're feeling good about ourselves, only when we're feeling a little joy, can we actually receive that bracha. In Eretz Yisrael, because we know that God's eyes are on us always, no matter the difficulties, no matter the tsaras, no matter how tough it is day to day. But we know that God's eyes are specifically on the land of Israel, then we can always generate the necessity, generate the things that are necessary to feel that joy, to feel that pride of being in Eretz Yisrael. In Chutz La'aretz, where it's less clear to us, so there we have to wait until a yontif. We have to wait until a holiday when our hearts are lifted and exalted, when our bodies and our hearts are melding together. That's when we can receive that bracha. But that reminds us that when we hear this blessing, when we confer it on our children, when we hear it conferred from a Kohen to the congregation, we have to remind ourselves that this is the underpinnings of our existence. This is the foundation that we stand on. Yivarechecha Hashem, that God should bless us with a material foundation and give us the ability to protect it and to appreciate it. Yerushem Panav Elecha, that God should give us a spiritual foundation. Vichuneka, and an ability to be able to have a grace about us that people are inspired by who we are. And Yisa Hashem Panav Elecha, God should give us the ability to be able to integrate the two things in our lives. But the only way that's going to happen is v'yosem l'cha shalom, is if we are at peace. And if we're at peace with our decisions, we're at peace with who we are are at peace with where we are. So then God's blessing can land, and increase our very existence. It's my thoughts. I'm going to send out also, besides, I send this out every Friday, besides I'm sending this out, I'm also going to send out a Shabbos message like I always do. The Shabbos message really could be appended to this as an end about internal shalom. But I want to keep it as two separate messages. And when you see it either tonight or tomorrow, so then I think you'll enjoy it, because it just takes this concept of shalom, of peace, and it concretizes it. Okay, everybody should have a beautiful, peaceful, safe, wonderful Shabbos. And you know what? Sunday morning I won't be here, so we will pick up again on Monday. Okay, I'm asking for an excused absence on Sunday. And on Monday, Yirtzeh Hashem, we'll continue. Okay, have a beautiful Shabbos, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thanks,
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Did I say something?